It's betting, Jim, but not as we know it.
How dare you? Are you just talking to yourself?
2:09. It is 10 minutes past the hour of 3 p.m. on Wednesday, the 4th of October, 2023, and you are listening to the BashCast. Coming up in this afternoon's BashCast, Tom donates some money from a Mudryk win and recounts a story when he nearly caused a racial riot, a Ryder Cup summary, a few decent edges and angles and a missed opportunity. Betfred have a new Hotshots coupon in shops where we look at calculating the value in a team to have the most amount of goals on a Champions League evening. New Bookiebashing member Hussain joins us to share with us some $ success stories from his first few months of value betting, and the Gambling Commission sent an extraordinary letter to the Racing Post. Can the Can Man save us all? All of that and more coming up on the BashCast this afternoon. Afternoon. I'm just back from a wholesome afternoon up at the local church that is next to my children's primary school. Not much of a church goer myself, but it's a Church of England school, and they had the Harvest Festival up there. Makes you feel good about yourself, doesn't it? Donating a little bit of food, although I always feel a little bit guilty. I'm not going to pick the premium food that I intend on eating. Neither am I organised enough to go to Morrison's for a specific shop to donate items, so you do kind of give the tins that are in the back of the cupboard that you probably aren't going to use anytime soon. I don't necessarily know how that makes me feel about myself, but had a good win on Mudryk. On Monday night, Fulham versus Chelsea, first goal scorer, Michalo Mudryk. He was really decent EV. But Almiron was like 140% EV for Newcastle on the weekend, missed him for first goal scorer. Mudryk was 115%. Got him at 14.5 from memory. So if that's wrong, don't judge me. But it was easily taken. The back was available. Didn't need to trade anything. And then Chelsea aren't meant to score in games. I guess this is why he was priced so highly. But, when we took his XG and divided it through the match XG, 14.5 was a crazy price. Second minute, he could have scored. Third minute, he could have scored. 10th minute, I'm reading the Flash Scores commentary here. By the way, have more adverts on your website, Flash Scores. Just do it. Just put more adverts on there, which I accidentally click and end up going to some place that I don't want to go. 10th minute, just sails over the crossbar and then gets his first goal in the 18th minute of the match. I mean, he could have had 4 by then. So it was like the easiest first goal score at 14.5 ever. So I didn't expect it, but I kind of liked it. And because it was decent TV, staked quite big on it. And so I went up to the church and just made the decision that I was going to donate a chunk of the profits from Mudryk to the local charities that they were supporting, which was food banks, because apparently the donations in the food banks are lower than ever and the usage is higher than ever, which makes sense during a cost of living crisis, and some underprivileged kids in the sort of local area. It's kind of the season of charity giving. Got a message through from a long-time member. He's done really well recently. It's kind of weird, by the way. We've either had people send in messages saying they've done really well or they've done really badly. And I guess if you're new and you've done really badly, you can question it all. Someone had commented that the service has been extremely poor. Somebody else got in touch to say that they've made 6 figures over the last few months. Somebody else I'm going to have on the podcast in a bit has healthy 5 figures in the last 4 months. So he wanted to have a little bit of chat about that. We asked him if he wanted to. And then other people are saying haven't made money for a couple of months. Some questioning whether it's all over now because we've had a period of variance, which is a little bit frustrating. It's like, is the value gone? Well, no. In fact, if you look at the equity that's available, there's more than ever. We haven't changed the algorithm or the code. So what's happening here? Is it a period of variance, or have all the horses just started to lose? You've got to bear with it. You really do. September didn't look like it was the highest ROI on horses, but still profitable most places. I think William Hill had a tough time of things. But it's 1 month. You can't count it on 1 month. You really cannot count it on 1 month. So, yeah. Somebody got in touch saying they wanted to donate some money. Could I suggest somewhere? So I've suggested Syria, which I went to at the beginning of the year. He could either donate to the Red Cross, or I can actually send the money straight over to a contact that I've got over that I'm supporting over there on a regular basis. So he's done that, and he sent that to me on Friday, and it's now Wednesday, and I haven't done it yet. And now I'm starting to, as each day goes by, I'm feeling more and more guilty about this. I'm definitely going to do it. I'm saying it now just to keep myself responsible. So I've got a benchmark of how late I'm going to be on this. I'm not going to sit on it forever. Not exactly making any interest on it in the account, but he sent that over to me. So I'm going to get it over tomorrow. Yeah, let's do it tomorrow. Definitely. So, so it seems to be a bit of a charitable season. The underprivileged kids, though, I have a little bit of a I don't know, what was it? Embarrassing history with this. So back in my mid-20s, so quite a long time ago, I was doing the soup kitchen, the local soup kitchen. Look, I'm not a hero. I'm not here to tell everyone that I'm a hero, because I do these things to make me feel better. That's the primary number one goal. And if it just happens to help out, then whatever, but it helps my mental state. And then there was another group I was involved with as well as the soup kitchen, which was helping or taking underprivileged Birmingham kids who have, had a bit of a rough ride in life, maybe from broken families, maybe they've been in and out of youth institutions and things, taking them away on like a holiday that they don't normally have. So we'd take them camping and swimming and hiking and rock climbing, get them out of the city. I remember being on the bus, and the sort of demographic of these kids, a lot of them were maybe 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, listening to, the hip-hop music, the rap music, all of these modern kind of music. So you heard of the rap music, they're listening to that kind of music. And they would get a little bit unruly on the bus. And so that we had like a sheet from the charity, or a little book to guidance for what we can do if things are maybe starting to get a bit loosey-goosey out of control. And I opened it up, and it distract them on long journeys by engaging in activities such as a sing-along. For example, the wheels on the bus go round and round. Now, here's a bunch of, urban kids, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, white kids, black kids, Asian kids, a lot of them listening to Dre, Eminem, grime music, drum and bass, and they're encouraging me to sing The Wheels on the Bus Go Round and Round. That's brilliant advice. Thank you very much. So I took it into my own hands, and I said, let's come up with swearing across the alphabet. So can we come up with swear words from A to Z? I'll start. Arsehole. Who can do B? Bastard. Who can do C? Okay, we went with the C word. We get down to M, motherfucker, like that. And I suddenly project forward to the letter N for a swear word. And as I say, there's a bunch of different mixed races on the bus. And I'm like, what have I let myself in for here now? So I stopped everyone. And I said, before we get to the letter N, if anybody utters a racial slur, now they're walking back. We're turning around. We're not going into Wales onto the camping holiday, okay? So without being racist, can we all come up with a swear word for the letter N? And every single one of them, white, black, Asian, green, yellow, blue, every single one of them in unison just went with the racial slur and fell about laughing on the bus as loudly as they could. I don't know if it was the wisest idea I ever had, but it certainly pulled them out of being a little bit misbehaved, and the tensions relaxed. So we got down to the campsite. I've already made mistake number one. We got the tents up. We spent a day doing the activities. And then we're planning the following day. And there's a local swimming pool that we can go to. And I'm wearing at the time like a cowboy hat, like an Australian outback leather hat, because why not? So I'm wearing my leather hat, and we're talking about swimming, and a couple of the kids say they've never been swimming before. And I say, well, it's not that difficult. I'll teach you how to swim. I'm quite a good swimmer. I mean, I say I'm quite a good swimmer. I know how to swim, and I'm confident, but I'm certainly no athlete. And they said, well, you can swim, Tom, can you? And I'm wearing my cowboy hat. And it's the early 2000s when Ian Thorpe was destroying all records in the Olympics, apparently because he doesn't feel the pain of lactic acid going through his system at the same level as ordinary people. In fact, ordinary people would pass out if they had the same amount of lactic acid going through, which is why he broke all those records. Regardless, so they said, Tom, are you a good swimmer? And I said, of course I'm a good swimmer. Where I come from, they call me the Thorpedo. And the face of the organizer of the BYC completely dropped and stared at me. And at this time, I hadn't recognized what I'd actually said. I compared myself to Ian Thorpe, the Thorpedo. But I'm not called Ian. I'm not called Thorpe. I'm called Tom. I'm the Thorpedo. And all of a sudden, the penny dropped that as a sort of adult supervisor of a bunch of underprivileged children that I didn't know, I stood them around in a group and I told them that my nickname was the Thorpedo. And I've never lived that down. Came up in my wedding speech. It's a nickname you don't want in life. It really isn't. And so combine my issues with causing racial tension on the bus and then getting to the campsite and announcing to everybody that my nickname is Thorpedo. It was a charity trip, giving up my own time, that perhaps I could have construed a little bit more wise. Gambling and chat. And gambling and chat. Gambling and chat. Gambling and chat. Gambling and chat. The Ryder Cup's just hours of fun, isn't it? It is. Europe needed to win this year. Although Europe always seemed to win on European soil. America always seemed to win on American soil. But Europe needed 16.5. America needed 16 down in Italy. And right up until, I reckon, 2 days, 48 hours, or maybe 3 days before the Friday, the USA were favourites to win the match. They were as high as 2-1 in December 2020. I know this because Duncan shared a screenshot. It might have been December 2021, but he got Europe 2-1 at that point. Before the tournament at the beginning of the week, we did our multi-criteria analysis graph on the golf. So we took the 16 golfers, the 8 from Europe and the 8 from America, and we picked up their strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained approaching the green, and strokes gained putting. We used those 3 attributes. We could have used others. We could have used driving distances, driving accuracy, greens in regulation, putts per round, bogey avoidance. There's a billion stats you can use. But those 3 stats, you won't go far wrong with strokes gained because they really encompass all of the other stats as well. So you can specialize by course, but if you don't know anything about the course or if you just want to have an overall view, those 3, you won't go wrong. So what we do is we build up those stats for each of the players. You're not quite doing like for like because people like Ludwig Aberg, Bob McIntyre, their strokes gained are against, you could maybe argue, slightly weaker fields when they've been playing more DP World events than they have been doing PGA, although they both jump between both tours. The PGA players perhaps have slightly more competitive fields. But we put these together. What did we see? World number one, Scotty Scheffler, no surprise, scored the best out of all 16 players relative to the rest of the field. So we scored him 5 out of 5. And next was Patrick Cantley. So America got 1 and 2. But the interesting thing was we then gave Europe spots 3, 4, 5, and 6. Rory McIlroy and Tyrrell Hatton seemed to be actually fairly equally matched in terms of their scores, even though they were vastly different for overall points. And then Jon Rahm and Ludwig Aberg on his recent form. And again, okay, you've got Xander Schauffele, but then you've got Victor Hovland and Tommy Fleetwood. So it seemed to be that whilst the top two in terms of stats were USA, a lot of the top half after that was Europe. The bottom was taken up by Justin Thomas, Brian Harman, and Brooks Koepka. Jordan Spieth not faring too well, and Ricky Fowler in the middle, but he had a bug. So average all of those players for strokes gained, and what do we find? We, out of 5, this is a metric that means nothing, it's just a scale out of 5, but we scored Europe at about 3.4 and we scored the USA at about 2.9. That means, under our metrics, we made Europe's favourite. And at the time, Europe were 2.4 and the USA were about evens 2.05, something like that. So we were staring at this as like, what have we missed? I honestly don't think we've missed a lot, but the markets just make the USA favourites and we don't. At that point, I made Europe a value bet, posted it up on Twitter. I thought it was going to go off with Europe's as favourite. Well, kudos to the markets, big respect to them, because Hello? Hello?
Hi, my name is Lisa and I'm calling you from House Maintenance Team. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Sorry, where are you calling from, please? Okay, edit squirrel there. Housing maintenance phoned me. Who are housing maintenance? She asked if there was anything wrong with my house. There's nothing wrong with my house, other than it's a little bit cold, but I haven't turned the heating on. Housing maintenance. Scammers. Utter scammers. Anyway, so I was on Europe, didn't get the 2-1 that Duncan got, but loaded up at various prices between 2.2 and 2.3. And yeah, the price came crashing down. Europe went off as favourites, nearly even money. Kudos to the markets for catching up. Big respect for catching up with our analysis. Doesn't mean anything because, well, it does mean some things. I was kind of like a little bit, you put your neck out and you say, the markets have got the USA as favourites. We've done our analytics and we make Europe as favourites. So we make Europe the value bet. And enough of a size for it to be a decent value bet. And you get a few people saying, so you're just saying the markets are wrong. And yeah, I am. I mean, look, the markets may have considered other things that I didn't. But then the markets also haven't done my analysis using my particular algorithm because it's not available to anybody. Nobody knows it apart from me. And so under anyone can have analytics. Anyone can make 1 + 1 = 2 and then say that they're very confident that it equals 2 under their own mathematics. And somebody else can come around and say, well, they make it 3. I was like, okay, fine. Allow them to make it 3. I make it 2. I might have done something wrong. They might have a new way of calculating it that I don't, but I'm just saying what I make it, right? So I made a Europe winners and maybe, I mean, look, they didn't need to have steamed into favourites, but they did. And so there's some self-satisfaction there. I enjoyed it. Of course, that doesn't mean that they're going to win, but going 4-0 up in the first morning is fan-bloody-tastic, isn't it? So they just sort of dived down to 1.2 and then just kept on going down. It was like the easiest winning 2.2, 2.3 value bet that I've had in a while. I also looked at, so of course we don't have each way betting in the Ryder Cup. So I looked at correct score, which I tried to do in play, and I tried to do my own predictions of the probability of each match anytime a player went one up or all square or one down. Didn't go well for me. I didn't win any of my in plays for like the day one morning score, day one afternoon score. But that's okay. So there you go. I've told you about a winner, but I'm not just telling you about winners. I did try and model correct score myself. I don't actually think I did anything wrong. It's just it didn't go my way. I did actually. I know I had some value bets because I found Europe 8-0 at 36 on the exchange when they were going to win 4-0. It was just clear they were going to win 4-0 in the morning. So 8-0 was 36, 7.5, 0.5 was 27. And, you know, the top prices for 4-0 and 3.5, 0.5 in the afternoon out there were like 12 and 16, so less than half the price of what was available on the exchange. That doesn't necessarily mean that the exchange is a value, but I did kind of think it might have been left up there a little bit by somebody in play. But my numbers were coming up way lower than that, a lot closer to the best bookmaker prices on that. So, I mean, I had 8-0 and 7.5, 0.5 after the first day, but the afternoon four balls didn't quite go to plan with three of them all squared. So the USA did pick up 1.5 points in the afternoon. And I also looked at sort of two other markets, well, maybe like 5 other markets, but a lot of them are related to each other. So I looked at will there be a hole in one? So will there be a hole in one was rough back of fag packet mathematics. But, I mean, you start off here saying there's a few places are boosting hole in one, right? So you want to know what the odds of hole in one are yourselves. And the first thing you do is you look at I look at Bet365 yes and no, and I think they were 1.28 yes, no 1.28 no, and 3.5 yes. But the no in these things, like, you know, a 9 darter in the darts, the no has got all the margin applied to it because everybody is yes betters in this, right? So rough mathematics, rough back of fag packet mathematics, you have a number of par 3s and a drivable par 4 on the course, right? So I think there was something like 4 par 3s. It could have been 4 par 3s and the par 4. And Duplessis got a hole in one on the par 4, but it wasn't a DP World Tour event earlier this year. It was like a driving competition or something like that. They said that Hovland got one as well, but it was his second shot off the tee. It was his second ball off the tee. So was it a hole in one? And that was before the tournament as well. But trying to work out how many attempts at hole in ones is slightly difficult because they don't play all 18 holes because it's match play. So you could be, one of them was the 16th, which was the par 4, but how many matches are going to go to the 16th? Because if you're, 4 holes up after the 15th hole, then you don't play the 16th hole. So it was difficult to know how many par 3s plus the 16th were going to be played. So we went for about 250 to 300. And the odds of a hole in one, it would have been nice to have got this specific for this course in Rome, but that proved to be a little bit too difficult. I mean, the data's a bit thin in the ground. So we went with 1,900 to 1 for an elite professional to get a hole in one on any particular shot, right? So 250 attempts to 3 pessimistically, 300 optimistically to get a hole in one. And the odds of each attempt is 1,900 to 1, right? So the mathematics are 1 minus brackets 1 minus bracket 1 divided by 1,900. So what you're doing is you're taking the 1,900 to 1 off 100% there, right? Which is 1,900 to 1 in probability is 0.0005263. So you take that off one to get your 0.9999, and then you take that off one again after you've taken it to the power of either 250 to 300 attempts. And that gave us yes between 6.85 and 8.11. Quite a wide range. It did depend if there was going to be 250 to 300 attempts. That's the bit of the calculation that was uncertain. So really wide range of odds there. Right? But that's quite wide. But flip it around. That's for the yes, 6.85 to 8.11. Couldn't get anywhere near those odds anywhere, unsurprisingly. But looking at the no, that's a lot better margin there. It was between 1.14 and 1.17. So whilst the yes, we were very uncertain, the no was a little bit less uncertain, even though it's the same margin. It just looks so differently when it's low odds. Anyway, you can get 1.28 at Bet365. I mean, that looked like it could have been a 200% EV bet. We went with the pessimistic thing on the 1.17. I'm not going to boom a no coming in at 1.28. Especially though, I think on the first morning, the foursomes, Rahm nearly got a hole in one, Hovland nearly got a hole in one, Hatton nearly got. I was on it. Do you want to know how much I had on it? I had a tenner on it. I had a tenner on it on the exchange at 1.2, only because one, liquidity. Two, I'm just not a big fan of betting at 1.2, so I just stuck the bet up to log that I'd done it. But yeah, that one came in. So I won my £2 with my tenner at 1.2 on the exchange on the no hole in one. No, I am going to boom that. Boom. There you go. I'm booming my 1.2. And then the other market I looked at was top wildcard, top USA point scorer, top European point scorer, top combined point scorer. So where's the edge in these coming from? You have to have some sort of metric on the number of points that each player is going to get. And I tried to do this myself, and I got a little bit brain foggy, mental gymnastics going on. And I was confusing the problem a little bit too much. I was like, let's let somebody else do it because there are liquid markets on the exchange. Let's assume that the outright combined point scorer is the liquid market here. Okay, let's assume that. So if that's the efficient market, and it has more liquidity and trading than the rest of the markets, than top wildcard, top USA, and top European. Given that the top combined, the assumption is that that's efficient, you can actually work out top European, top USA, and top wildcard, and all the rest of the tops yourself by taking the probability of the fair odds of top combined and make sure that they sum to one. And if they don't sum to one, normalize them to sum to one. It does get a little bit iffy with people like McIntyre, who were probably more than 1,000 to one. Although looking back, they shouldn't have been. But I mean, McIntyre was trading up at 800. I guess it's because he wasn't going to play a lot of matches, which is why he couldn't have been. Ended up being Wyndham Clark and Ricky Fowler that weren't playing any of the matches. Bug going around the USA team. But you take your normalized combined and then you just split those probabilities out for the different subcategories you've got. Top wildcard, top USA points, top European points, those kind of things. And hey presto, you've got your value bets because you just take those probabilities and you've got a new market and you can normalize them. Now, if you do this for like in PGA events and DP World, it doesn't quite work because a lot of the players, when they're trying to win or bust kind of players like McIlroy, he'll go for the green after 70 holes. And if it means he ends up in the water and doesn't place, that he's going to go for the win. Whereas other players don't necessarily go for the win. They're happy to place, and this kind of normalization doesn't work. But in the Ryder Cup, there should be no reason why every player isn't trying to win every point. This is what we did go for. And this threw up the following top European points scorer, Bob McIntyre. Now, he wasn't going to play that many holes originally. He actually ended up playing 3, and from memory, he got 2.5 points. By the way, nowhere has a league table of the amount of points that each player is on, which is dumb considering that's a lot of the bets that people are on. I couldn't find it anywhere, so I had to make my own league table. But yeah, Big Bob got 2.5 points, which was enough for like 8th position or 7th position. And I guess because he didn't play 2 of the sessions, that's why people were pricing him up so unlikely. But yeah, I also had in top European point scorer Victor Hovland at 106% EV, and Rory McIlroy, 5.7 back, was available. I made him 5.3 at 106% EV. Guess who I went for? I went for Victor Hovland, top European, and for some reason and he was 5.9. I just persuaded myself against doing Rory. I'm gutted about it because I made him 105 on the exchange. It was a good bet, and I just persuaded myself out of doing it. I don't know why I did as well, because it was the only one of the ones. It was the only one of the bets that I worked out that I didn't go for, and it won. Rory got 4 points, but there you go. It is what it is. I'm not going to cry over. Yeah, there you go. That's like a reverse humble brag, isn't it? Because I'm saying I worked it out to be value, and I still didn't pull the trigger and bet on it. So I'm an idiot. Top overall wildcard point scorer. The value was Ludwig Aberg and Tommy Fleetwood. Now, I wanted to bet on Ludwig anyway, but I needed some from like a passion point of view, but I needed some justification that he was a good price. So by normalizing him through the efficient market, I made him 8.3 in top overall wildcard, and he was 9.8. And I was loving to see that. So I went big on Aberg at 116%. Because I was Kellying, I went a little bit bigger than Fleetwood. So when you got to the last day, it was quite interesting because Fleetwood and Aberg were 0.5 points ahead of the rest of the wild cards, and there was only one behind them. I think it was Homer. And then there was a bunch that were like 1 point behind, so they could only tie. But as it transpired, the way that the afternoon worked out, it wasn't Homer, by the way. I just can't remember who it was in second place. But the way the afternoon transpired, it was like they couldn't be caught. And it was looking for a long time like it was going to be a dead heat between the two of them. And I was on both of them. And because I was Kelly staking, I was on Ludwig more than I was on Liability, more than I was on Tommy Fleetwood. So that would have suited me better than Tommy Fleetwood being the outright winner. I would have won more money if they'd been joint, or even more money if it had just been Ludwig. But as it transpired, Tommy Fleetwood with his 3 points was good to win that. Aberg did finish with his 2 points, but picked up top wildcard scorer. A nice old bet there. And USA top point scorer, Scotty Scheffler, 0.5 points. So that's one I wish I hadn't bet on. I was kind of picking what don't I bet on out of top USA and top European, and I did bet on Scheffler and I didn't bet on Rory. I could have bet on both of them. And I had Brooks Koepka being a value bet there, and he did nothing. Absolutely nothing. 1.5 points combined for those USA point scorers. So it was a decent Ryder Cup overall. I got my overall winner from the metrics graph. I got my hole in one, £2 just from mathematics on 1900 to 1. Always look at the no in those bets. I don't even know why I started off looking at the yes ever, but I mean, no hole in one, no 9 darter in the tournament. They're always at least going to be neutral on that side. Got my overall wild card with Tommy Fleetwood. Wish I'd looked at some more markers. Wish I'd looked at the European wild card and the USA wild card. I just didn't drill down that far. Let one go with Rory McIlroy in top European point scorer, but you can't win them all. I mean, I could have won them all, but I'm an idiot and I didn't win them all. And yeah, you got to love all of the videos going around of Lowry shouting at that rules official. It's you making more fucking noise than anybody else. That's my Irish accent. Don't you come at me, because it's a good one. He gets away with it because he's got a lovable, chirpy Irish accent. Can't he? You can get away with anything, Lowry. You got to love him. You got to love Rory McIlroy falling out with Cantley's caddy. How they didn't get Cantley's caddy to be in the singles against Rory McIlroy on the final day, I do not know, but that's a missed trick. I want more of that drama. It should turn into some sort of WWE kind of storyline competition as the Ryder Cup goes on. And then all the videos of the on the bus on the way home. On the left side of the bus. You got to love it. Ryder Cup. See what happens in a couple of years. But we can park all of those edges until then because it's a biennial event. And yeah, fun as it was, we'll we'll shelve this and talk about it again in 2025. So, okay, that's enough of edges in the past. I was talking through that and I was thinking, like, you know, it must be a bit frustrating. Maybe as a listener, you might be like, Tom, you're just talking about, you know, a biennial golf tournament. Hey, look, I don't judge. But it's going to be another couple of years until the next one rolls around. What use is talking about edges in that? And I get that. So, okay, tonight's the Champions League. So let's talk about edges in the future. Although I've put myself under stress now because it's, 9:45 in the morning. And the first game's at 5:45, which means I'm going to have edited and uploaded this by 5. There's every chance that the Champions League is in the past when you listen to this. But it's in the future for me now. So that's the important thing, isn't it? New-ish, it's not new, but it's new-ish coupon at Betfred called the Hotshots coupon. I keep wanting to say Hotspots. That was my PhD thesis, identifying hotspots in highways maintenance using multi-criteria analysis and genetic algorithms. So I love the hotspots, but it's not hot spots, it's hot shots. Can I find the coupon here so I can actually look at it whilst I'm talking to you? It's in one of these things. Okay. Yeah, this is like last night's coupon, which is fine. Tuesday, the 3rd of October, Champions League matches. This is available at Betfred midweek. So this was first put up, noticed a couple of weeks ago. I think maybe for the first Champions League week when Newcastle got that blazing 0-0 victory against AC Milan. Newcastle favourites tonight, by the way, against PSG. What is the world coming to when Newcastle are favourites against Paris Saint-Germain? That's the Mbappe effect. We were talking about that. It was like, why is Newcastle priced favourites against Paris Saint-Germain? It's like, Paris Saint-Germain are rubbish recently. Did they lose to Clermont Foot recently? They lost to a football team whose like suffix is foot. Foot. So the Hot Shots coupon is a coupon that has the standard match bettings, but it also then asks for the highest scoring team. So last night, highest scoring team, favourites. I mean, they've got the 16 teams and the 8 matches. So you can have highest scoring team and you can have highest scoring matches, right? So there's 8 matches, 16 teams. Last night, Bayern Munich, I was all over Harry Kane to get 2 goals in that. Bayern Munich against FC Copenhagen. Bayern Munich with 5-2 favourites to be the highest scoring team last night, which seems crazy short, by the way. It really does. And then you've got the rest of the teams. By the way, Bayern Munich got 1 goal against FC Copenhagen last night. Oh, no, they didn't. They got 2 goals, but still. Goal fest last night, by the way. The only teams that didn't score were Salzburg and Benfica. So what was I on last night? I was on Benfica to get goals, wasn't I? The only team, well, only one of 2 teams that got 0 goals. Anyway, so Bayern 5-2, Man United 11-2, all the way down to Braga 50-1, Galatasaray 66-1, Lons 66-1, FC Copenhagen 125-1. Some big odds there, right? And then highest scoring match, the favourite was Copenhagen Bayern Munich at 10-3. The outsider was Union Berlin versus Braga at 10-1. So last night's scores, I'm not going to go through the teams, but they were 2-0, 3-2, 2-1, 1-0, 2-1, 3-2, 3-2, 2-2. So bonkers, right? 4 teams got 3 goals, and 3 teams got 3 goals, and 3 matches finished 3-2. So they all tied, right, for highest scoring match. So what happens then? Well, the coupon says, in the event of a tie, the team that scored the earliest goal in their particular match will be settled as a winner. In the event of a tie, the match with the earliest goal will be settled as a winner. Which is great when we post this on the forum. And then the first question is, what happens if it's a tie, like it was last night? It literally says on the coupon, in the event of a tie, it's the match with the earliest goal. What match had the earliest goal? Of those 3, I did go through the times. Braga scored in the 41st minute. Galatasaray in the 23rd minute, Real in the 27th minute. Those are the three teams that got 3 goals. So Galatasaray against Manchester United, Wilfried Zaha in the 23rd minute wins that. They were 66-1, and the fair odds were 62.0 or point something. So there was decent value on Galatasaray. I tend to find that there's a little bit more value on the outsiders in this coupon than there is on the insiders. It just feels a little bit nuts that 66-1 was quite a big price. Braga 50-1 was green EV. 50-1. What were the fair odds? I've got the exact 46.18, 110% EV. And they nearly got it as well. You know what I mean? They got the 3 goals. It's just they didn't score earliest in the match. And again, Man United versus Galatasaray was 5-1 for the highest scoring match. Union Berlin Braga was the outsider at 10-1, and they tied with 5 goals. Didn't win it because they didn't have the earliest goal in the match. Oh no, wait a minute! I haven't actually checked earliest goal in the match. I've only checked the team. Braga match was the 30th minute. Man United match was the 17th minute. I feel like I was watching the Real match, and that was early-ish. When was the Real goal? Real goal was the 19th minute. Oh, yes, a Man United match. The Galatasaray swept up both. That was the highest scoring match. And that was the highest scoring team in Galatasaray, right? Coolio. So how do we go about working this out? So let's not talk about the past. Let's talk about the future. At least the future at the time of recording of this BashCast. It's just, you're not going to be listening to this before 5:45, but it is the future for me just now. Tonight's games, 8 games: Atletico Madrid, Feyenoord, Antwerp, Shakhtar, Celtic, Lazio, RB Leipzig, Man City, Crvena Zvezda against Young Boys. I heard that Duncan really fancies Young Boys tonight. Newcastle versus Paris Saint-Germain. Can't believe Newcastle are favourites in that match. What is going on in the world? The Mbappe effect. Although Paris Saint-Germain did lose to a team with the suffix foot in it recently. Clermont Foot, Porto, or it could have been a draw. Porto, Barcelona, Dortmund, AC Milan. Right, so we've got those 8 matches. Now, we know the XG, or we can estimate the XG. We can either do this ourselves, or we can steal it from somewhere else, or we can steal it from Bookiebashing, right? So if you just want the easiest way of doing it, you could pop over to the spreads and just take the midpoint. That is like a gap of 0.15, which is quite a lot of difference in terms of XG, right? So the other way of doing it is you can steal the sort of over 2.5 goals or over 1.5 goals from any liquid place, like a best bookmaker price or an exchange, and then use a reverse pass-on distribution, or just steal it from Bookiebashing, because you can go to the detailed games, filter by Champions League, copy that, and you've got all of the match, home and away XGs, and that's what we need. We need XGs to work out the highest scoring team. So the highest scoring match tonight is Newcastle United versus Paris Saint-Germain with 2.96. And then very closely before them, it's Leipzig Man City 2.93. And they're both 5-1 for highest scoring match. Fred have then priced up Antwerp Shakhtar Donetsk at 6-1 and Porto Barcelona at 13-2. But we have Porto Barcelona as the third highest XG, 2.87. In fact, Antwerp Shakhtar we price up as the lowest XG tonight. So that's interesting that they're the third favourites at Fred, but they have the lowest XG in terms of what we have at Bookiebashing. So they're not a bet. Highest scoring team, Atletico Madrid with 1.88. Lowest scoring team is their opponent's Feyenoord with 0.97 XG. So we've got all of the XGs, right? We've got 8 match XGs. We've got 16 team XGs. How do we turn that into odds for highest scoring? We use something called a Skellum distribution. And before I go any further, if you are very bored about the statistics, not interested, or just don't want to do this yourself, the Bookiebashing tool does it for you. I'm not going to go through how boring it is to set that up on the BashCast, because you kind of need to see the screen. I did record a tutorial for how to set up highest scoring team. It's under latest news, the Hotshots coupon, I think, or Hotspots at Fred, or Hotshots, not hotspots. So if you want to see how, but essentially go to the bet builder and use the most calculation and ensure that draws are split, right? We don't want this to be dead heat odds. The draw, if you like, is split out because there can only be one winner in this. There's not a dead heat. And technically, if two teams get the same amount of goals and it goes to earliest teams, that is like a 50-50 basically between the teams, although it's slightly in the favour of the team with the higher XG. And that is, all of those mathematics are encompassed into the draws are split using the most calculation on bookiebashing.net. It, by the way, is a nightmare to set up on your phone if you're not at your computer. It's the kind of thing you have to get the coupon and go back to your desk to be able to work out. Because, you got to set up 8 teams and select which teams you're looking at the odds of. But it can be done. So you take the XG of each match, ranging from 2.72 from Antwerp to 2.96 to Newcastle. You run them through a Skellum distribution. So what's a Skellum distribution? Okay, so imagine you've just got not 8 teams, but you've got 2 teams, i.e., what are the odds of a team to win? You've got the XG on both sides. A Skellum distribution essentially takes the XG of Newcastle and says, what are the odds, using a Poisson distribution of it being 0 goals in the match, 1 goal in the match, 2 goals in the match, 3 goals in the match. And what are the odds of the opposition getting 0, 1, 2, 3? And it simply works out all the permutations of score lines until it is statistically insignificant, and then it adds up all of the winning score lines for the times that Newcastle got more goals than PSG. And that is your probability of Newcastle having the most goals, or one team having the most goals against the other team, using a Skellum distribution, which is basically Poisson based on a mean of XG. So we can do that with 2 teams, but we can also do that with 8 teams. And essentially what it will do is it will say the Newcastle match has 0 goals, 1 goals, 2 goals, 3 goals. The Leipzig match has 0, 1, 2, 3. The Porto match has 0, 1, 2, 3. How many times did Porto win? How many times was it a Leipzig match win? How many times and what probability was it of Newcastle winning? And it just sums all of those Poisson distributions up. So it's a Skellum distribution that you need. Now, when Betfred print this coupon, they will have the XG for every team in every match. But as it gets closer to kickoff, those XGs fluctuate. And some teams, such as Antwerp versus Shakhtar Donetsk, the markets will start to consider that they're not going to score as many goals as was initially thought, and they will drift. And other teams will steam in. Which teams have steamed in for tonight? Well, Feyenoord 50-1 have come in from 50-1. They rank outsiders to 44.07. Similarly, the Atletico Madrid Feyenoord match has steamed in to 8-1. Fair odds 8.04, 9.0, 8.04. So both of those 110%, 115% EV. They're related. They relate to exactly the same match. But yeah. Dortmund tonight also are the other team, 14-1. And the Dortmund match. It's all related, of course, because if an XG of a team steams in, it's very likely that the XG of the match has steamed in as well. So Dortmund to have the most goals tonight. So those are the two. Feyenoord at 50-1 and their match at 8-1, and Dortmund at 14-1 and their match at 7-1 seem to be the decent bets tonight. There was the 105% EV, and there's a couple of more thin ones as well. The Atletico Madrid actually to have the most goals is thinnish, 102% EV at 8-1, and Young Boys again thinnish at 102% EV at 25-1. Probably not. I mean, it's 26.0 to back 25.43 fair odds. I'm not backing that. It's just not good enough EV, but technically it has crept over the 100% line. We put this up in the first week at Bookiebashing simply to show that it exists and it can be done, but it's not the kind of thing we're going to put up week after week, even though we could. the amount of volume of money that can be held in 115% EV bets at 50 to 1 last night at 66 to 1 isn't a lot. And if loads of people are going out smashing exactly the same team, especially at 50 to 1, 66 to 1, it's not going to take a lot of money for those odds to get cut. So this is one of those things that could implode if we highlight the value too much and spoon feed people the actual bets. So we put them up this week. But we're not going to put it up week after week. It's the last time we put it up. Anyone can work it out and track them on private trackers if they've got access to bookiebashing.net, or do it in your own spreadsheets if you have a Bookiebashing subscription. Get your estimated XG for each team and each game, plug it into a spreadsheet, and use a Skellum distribution to work out the probability of any of those matches or any of those teams to get the highest amount. How do you set up a Skellum distribution in Excel? What is this? The Excel Masterclass course. Very occasionally I get emails and support tickets about, okay, I've got my data out of Bookiebashing. What do I do now in Excel? What am I? Mr. Excel? Am I just going to give up my time to explain how to use Excel? At some point, I need to let you tie your own shoelaces. And asking me how to separate a comma-separated value file into different columns in Excel is, without sounding rude, beneath my pay grade. It's just, there are tutorials. If you can't use a spreadsheet, then you're not going to be able to model anything yourself anyway. So don't come asking me to teach you Excel. I can't believe I just said the phrase beneath my pay grade. That's a first. I'm not very comfortable with it. I'm going to go and have a word with myself. Anyway, Hotshots coupon at Betfred. 2 days this week. 2 bits of big value. 66 to 1 winner last night. We make the 50 to 1 Feyenoord team and the 14 to 1 Dortmund team value tonight. So something to look out for. Yeah, for a little bit of a new edge over at Betfred. So sometimes, especially at Bookiebashing, I don't get a full experience or exposure of what it's like to be a new member, because we've been doing this for a long time. It sort of stands to reason that I understand the tools and the edges and the trackers that we have, but I've been working on this for the better part of 9-10 years. What is it like when you're a recent member and you're exposed to the world of advantage play and value betting that we have at Bookiebashing? Well, I'm joined today by someone who's kindly given up a little bit of time to chat about exactly that. Hussain, are you there on the line?
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you very much. You're just up the road from me, up in Birmingham, where I've spent many years, and also a lot of time in the shops up there. Can I ask about that? Have you been hitting the shops up in Birmingham at all? Do you have a long history and experience of value betting and advantage play before joining Bookiebashing? What have you been doing?
So I don't have a long history, I'd say, compared to most people in value betting. I'd say the proper value betting that I started was with Bookiebashing like 5 months ago now. So I'm in my 6th month now, like properly doing Bookiebashing. Before this, it was just tipster bets, which were still making money, but not to the scale that you can make using Bookiebashing. Obviously, shops wise, I go couple days a week. I'll try and mix it up with the online bets. Just if there's a lot in the Coral shops and Ladbrokes, which are down the road from me, I'll go with a 500, 600, 700 and just place all the bets for using the tracker on my phone. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to rewind a little bit then. So when was it that you joined Bookiebashing? Was it what month of 2023?
So it was start of May, really. 8th of May is the first day. Yeah.
How did you hear of us?
I heard of it through a friend who I was trying to advise to join some tipster groups, and then she advised me to join Bookiebashing and forget the tipsters. So then I thought, okay, she's clearly making a lot more money than I am. Let me try. And that's when first I got bookie bashing, and I was like, this, I'm way out of my depth here. Like this, I just see numbers everywhere, and none of this makes sense. But then after maybe not even a week, really, you sort of get the hang of it, and it's like, oh, this is very, very, very simple. Like just do what the software sort of tells you to. And yeah, so I started in May really with quite low stakes, but had about a 14% ROI on my first month, like £4,000 profit. Not my first full month doing it, which was amazing, really. Yeah.
Good man. And so I'm going to jump to the end before going into a little bit of detail. May 2023 through to the end of September 2023. How much are you up at all, or are you down? Where do you stand with bookie bashing PL?
So for the horses, just pure horses, so from May till September, I am at £33,500 profit, and that is roughly a 10.1% ROI. Using the golf, I've done 4 tournaments in the golf, and I'm up £2,000, which is 136% ROI, which is obviously quite high.
Yeah, we're not allowed to talk about ROI when it's only 4 tournaments, unfortunately.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
sort of semi being flippant there. But
Yeah.
good start, and you did well
Yeah.
missing the beginning of the year, which was
Yeah.
definitely a struggle on golf.
And then also the bet tracker, which I've just been dabbling in really for the last month. I've only been doing that. So overall, about £35,000 in 5 months.
That is not a bad return for 5 months
Yeah.
of bookie bashing whatsoever. And I must thank your friend. We don't have a large amount of girls join bookie bashing. For
Yeah.
I can't explain why, but it definitely the sort of sports betting world is very much more
Yeah.
heavily male based than it is female based. But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Well, you know, thank your friend for recommending us, because I think
Yeah,
we got off to
I
an
thank
absolutely
her.
fantastic start.
I thank her all the time, really, because so most of the profits I use to help my family. I'm just the only one really that provides for all 5 of us, so that's why the bookie bashing has actually been the best service ever. And it's allowed me to start my businesses. So I've got a couple businesses that I've started up since just using the profits from bookie bashing. Yeah, and that's why I recommend bookie bashing to everyone that I come across. Whenever
Good man.
people ask me what bets I do, I say I do horses, and they ask me, "Oh, your horse profits are incredible," and I say, "Yeah." And all I do is follow what the service tells me. It's simple, just 2 hours in the morning, and then probably 2 hours at like 12 till 2, and that's all. 4 hours a day work for £35,000 profit.
Actually, this is interesting. I want to get into this sort of schedule that you have. I had a little bit on the last BashCast, and I have to maintain this, that what we do is a lot of fun, but make sure anybody, especially listening as well, never considers this to be something to look after a family, because the volatility, the variance of sports betting, it can go your way, it can go against you
Yeah.
as well. And
Yeah.
we had someone email into us saying, don't have a job, I've got £1,000 bankroll. Do you think bookie bashing's for me? And the answer was just no, it's not.
Yeah.
Go get a job and find some money that you can lose,
Yeah.
because we can't guarantee the winners. We can just guarantee positive equity in the long run. So going back to your routine, you're sort of hitting it twice a day. What times of the day was those?
So I usually try and hit it before. I start at 9 and I'll get most off the tracker, all the bets done around 11 usually, if there's not too many on, and then I'll go for a break, or usually go to the gym for that hour and a half, and then I'll come back, eat something, and then around 1 is when I'd go back on, and then around 2 is when I'll stop placing bets. Even if more horses come, that's sort of my cutoff for me personally. And then sometimes I'll do them the day before. So after I've tracked all the bets for the day at like 11, 12, depending on my mood, and if I'm awake, I'll jump on, maybe place a few £100 worth of picks again, But I've not really noticed any difference between like what picks win. So I thought maybe do the picks in the morning wins more or not? But it just seems to be random in a sense, really.
We did a review of this. We had because we were taking logging the bets at 11 o'clock in the morning and 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And we did see a marginal difference with a higher ROI in the morning to the afternoon, but it wasn't anything significant enough to
Yeah.
send out a signal. And I think what it tends to be is the difference between magnitude of EV and confidence. So in the morning, you'll tend to have higher EV and lower confidence. In the afternoon, you'll tend to have lower EV but higher confidence, and they tend to balance each other out.
Yeah. Well,
so what kinds of horse racing bets were you placing? Were you placing, like singles, patents, fourfolds?
So I started So when I first started, I was just doing patents, really, just 3-4 horses, and then patents. But then I sort of switched to just doubles because from the not that it's a lot of data because the variance per month can be quite a lot. But from the data I had tracked, I found that the doubles were returning much more profit, probably because of how much more consistent you hit a double compared to 3 horses you pick landing. So then I personally just stick to doubles because I think for the variance is less, and just because the variance is less, and I feel like they're very profitable. But I'm going to look into, obviously we spoke earlier about the different accumulators and things.
Yeah, we had a conversation just around different strategies for multiples and placing horse racing bets before this call. And in all honesty, the data can show one thing, but I think, and it is a question we get very often, it is a question of personal risk tolerance. A lot of people just bet singles each way because that's what they like. Placing multiples does compound value. If you were to go down the route of placing fourfolds, you might be, 10 to 1, that's 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. You might be waiting tens of thousands of bets before you hit that win, 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 win. And it can be a large variance volatility. A lot of people like lucky 15s. Some people like lucky 31s. You've found doubles. And my honest advice to anyone is you find what you're comfortable with in terms of variance and you just run with that. And which did you find any sort of filters or preference in I don't know, magnitude of odds or Irish racing, not Irish racing, anything of that you applied to your selections?
Well, the only change I sort of made was so I stopped picking horses lower than 7 odds, just because my friend sort of explained it that you'll have horses that win below those odds, but even with the each way place, it won't pay back the actual horse, the money you've lost. So then I stopped doing horses below 7 and above 81 because I found from the 4 months I was unprofitable at odds above 81. So maybe that's just me being a bit too eager to drop that odds range. But I dropped that odds range, and one of the main things I'd say is starting the Kelly staking, because my ROIs were quite high before I started Kelly staking, but the last 2 months I started actually learning about the Kelly staking and then using the Bookiebashing Kelly staking. So I configured that to my bankroll, and it's hard to say if my profits are higher because of the Kelly staking with such low, it's only been 2 months of using Kelly staking, but my 2 months have been quite good since I started the Kelly staking with lower overall stake, but hitting just as high profits. But that could also be down to variance. But those are the only changes I made: dropping odds below 7, above 81, and switching to a Kelly staking off 25%.
Yeah, I mean, every analytical sort of look at bet histories that I've done has shown that a form of Kelly staking compared to unit loss staking and unit win staking always has returned a higher ROI. It tends to reason that there is some logic in that the higher the perceived value of the bet, the higher you should stake. Personally, and again, it's just a personal preference, I tend to stick to a unit loss staking where I just put £3, £4 each way, lucky 15s on or lucky 31s on every bet that I do, regardless of the EV and of the odds. I perhaps could have made a higher ROI by adjusting that for Kelly. It's just a personal preference. If you're running with a form of Kelly staking and you're staking higher on higher perceived value bets and your ROI is increasing, then nothing but kudos to you. And then the thing about removing under 7-1 odds, it does tie into that strange theory that we have in advantage play value betting that ROI is higher at higher odds, regardless of the EV. Trench talked about this on the BashCast a couple of Decembers ago, Matthew Trenhale. It's why we see perhaps a higher ROI on singles on golf than we do in horse racing, when the average odds in golf is so much higher than in horse racing. It's at 30%, but each way betting 50% on the exchanges compared to 5% singles on horse racing. I know a lot of people that actually only bet at 7-1, 8-1 or lower, mitigating that risk of the higher horses. I'd like this idea, though, of kind of removing those evens horses, 2-1, 3-1, 4-1. Although I would maybe mention that I think the fact that the place component can return less than, you could be down on your single bet if you're betting at 5-1 or lower and the odds are 1-5 on the place component. You could run a loss on the bet for a horse that places. That doesn't affect EV, though. The equity in the EV that you're getting from your bets, even though you're returning a loss for a place for that horse, shouldn't be affected. Which particular bookmakers have you found useful, can I ask, when you first start off finding value? Are there any that seem to sort of jump out to you, or are you just spreading your bets across as many as you can?
I'd say I'd probably use Sky Bet the most, but really you just want to spread them as much as you can and try and avoid limits. I'd say what I've started using more is live score bet. Seemingly don't restrict very fast. I've been using the same account for a full month now, over, and no restrictions yet. So I'd say live scores quite good. Unibet as well. I think I'm on my second ever account.
Okay.
And it's harder to get horses on Unibet. They seem to drop in odds much faster, but I'd say Unibet is a really good one for not getting restricted. But you just have to sort of spread your stakes where you can get them on, really, because of how bookmakers just limit winners, really. I'd say probably avoid Bet365 because I feel like they limit you after 3-4 horses. But apart from Bet365, avoiding them, I'd say they're all as much as you can, as many as you can get, really, the bookmakers wise.
Yeah, they are that mad sort of always, very frequently top price. They use horse racing as so much of a loss leader. But then if you actually try and take advantage of that, they tend to know what you're doing and then they restrict quite quickly. Well, look, Hussain, thank you so much for just coming on and just having a chat about your first 4 or 5 months of Bookiebashing and your experiences. Nice profit there, 30k for 4 or 5 months. I hope that can continue at that level until the end of the year and into next year. It should be a good Christmas for you and your family, if so. Gambling and chat. 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 Going to finish today with some of the politics around gambling, a topic that I try and avoid, not because I'm not interested, but because I don't proclaim myself to be enough of an expert in this arena. There are some very competent, clever, educated, and experienced individuals who are doing a lot of good fighting that I back, such as the Gamblers Consumer Forum, and Abby and Andrew, both super clever people, experienced, competent, clear, concise, and I would rather back them than sort of poise opinions a lot of the time myself and have people follow mine, because I don't put myself into that same arena as them. There are too many people that shouldn't be having opinions that are voicing them, the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you think you're an expert but you don't understand, or are not willing to educate yourself on the wider and bigger picture. Way too many experts. That's why I leave it up to other people and give them my support rather than putting myself in the arena of the lion's den myself. Might be a little bit lazy and self-serving, but that's the position that I'm in. I don't want to be one of those, can he, the can Berry, the can he really can man, the can man, can Berry, who seems to pop up and voice his opinion on anything that isn't completely and utterly self-serving to himself without seeing the perspective of the other point of the view. A point in case, whilst I was just trying to search for some tweets for this, and can the can man can Berry popped up, as he always does with anything that you search for gambling related, because he is the king of clickbait. This kind of thing doesn't serve him particularly well, right? BetMGM are a new bookmaker. They're a new online soft bookmaker. You should appreciate the fact that this opportunity comes around, but don't expect as an advantage player or a value better for it to be around forever. Make hay whilst the sun shines. Try and extend the longevity of your account forever, but you're not going to have an account like BetMGM for a super long time. Very brave of them to come into the UK market with their deposit £10, get £40 in free bets, with the proliferation of the odds monkey sites, the profit accumulator sites. There are tens of thousands of members with their tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of accounts that they have available to them, signing up, backing, laying, and then never logging in again unless there's some sort of offer for them. I have sympathy. I mean, I don't really have sympathy with a corporate identity such as BetMGM. They have deep enough pockets. They must be absolutely killed when they come in. So I've signed up because I can get some lucky 15 on horses again on a soft bookmaker, and this isn't going to last forever, but I've been doing it, and I'll give you my experience. I signed up. I got all of the free bets on my accumulators and my bet builders and stuff like that, and I just threw them away on randomness. And I've been able to withdraw £450, and they didn't ask for ID. Look, I've signed up once. Nobody else in my house has signed up. I'm on the electoral roll. It's me using my own card. I deposited a small amount of money, and I withdrew £450 is what I withdrew. So it's not a huge amount of money. But I withdrew it last night, and this morning it was in my bank. And they haven't asked for ID from me, presumably because they can check my identity. And they have no issue with the types of bets that I was putting on. I generally try to stay away from anything that could be associated with arbitrage or laying off or anything like that. Whilst researching this topic, which is basically around the open letter from the Racing Post and how inappropriate to the Racing Post from the Gambling Commission, how inappropriate it was to post that, I did notice that the can man posted his deposit and withdrawal from BetMGM, and it seemed like he deposited £20 and then tried to withdraw £1,960 and was unable to do that. Now, that means that he's turned £20 into times 100 the stake. Well, good for him. How many times can you do that as... Well, it makes no difference if you're an advantage player or a match better, and he is the king of the match bettors. It's an unlikely thing to happen to turn £20 into 100 times the stake, even if you have an edge on your side. It's an unlikely thing to happen. It shouldn't happen that often. In the realms of, if the edge is on your side, maybe once out of every... I don't know, I'm trying to include the bonuses he got. I haven't worked out the maths, but it could be somewhere between 50 and once in 50 to once in 90 times. You would expect to deposit 20 quid and withdraw 960 quid. 1,960 quid. Given that, what is the probability that the can man did this on his one and only account. It's much more likely that he has rinsed BetMGM over and over and over again. And in one of those attempts, they have now suspended the withdrawal for the reasons of regulation and compliance. Here's where the waters are muddied. Look, I have no problem with anyone doing the multi-accounting. I'm not doing it myself. I focus on bets and accounts in my own name. And when that's over, I can advise other people to do stuff, but it is really them doing it and shops and exchanges. On the advice for some people to do it, by the way, our marketing manager, Evna, Vivi, opened up legitimately by herself a Bet365 account in Spain where she lives, by herself. Now, look, she has advice from me. We were even doing video calls where I was going to give her precise information of the types of bets she should be placing without telling her the actual bet. I think that's fair game. And she's got access, of course, to the Bookiebashing trackers and the value and all of the courses. So she understands how to win. And she's got the advantage of having me sort of available to chat to at any given point to point her in the right direction of the best way to maximize her ability to profit. So she's got an edge, but she was doing absolutely nothing underhand. Because it was her bank account, it was her ID, it's her decision making. I mean, that's a weird area where even if she had done all of that, could I have just told her the bets? That's probably fair enough for me to do, but that wasn't happening. I was just kind of pointing her in the direction of which particular tools, trackers, and how to use them. Anyway, they got back in touch with her before she'd even deposited, and they said that after reviewing your account, it's been closed and we've reported you to the DGOJ, which is like the Spanish Gambling Commission. It's like, what's that about? Why has she been reported? What's she been reported for opening an account? Anyone's allowed to open an account. It means that there's a suspicion that she's done something fraudulent, I guess, when she hasn't, and that's totally unfair. And of course, she tries to chat to them. She's going to get absolutely nowhere because bookmakers are closed corridors. You can't have a conversation with them. They exist in a cloak of silence. Really annoying for her. Anyway, back to the Can man. He could have run up 20 quid into £1,960 by himself. It's much more likely he's been in and out of BetMGM 10 to 20 times and rinsed them. I've no issue with that being the game you want to play. The issue I have is when you then get caught and you run and you moan and complain about it being unfair. You're the one being a little bit of a cheeky chappy here, right? You're the one who's being underhand, assuming I'm correct. I don't know if I'm correct. Maybe he got lucky in one account. But this assumption that is, the king of the match bettors here, it's exactly what he was doing. That's my assumption. If that's the game you're playing, don't moan about it when you get caught. You see, I went in by myself and I've withdrawn, not 1,960 quid, I withdrew 450 quid. And it went through and I wasn't even asked for ID. There was no regulations and compliance for me, presumably because they've been able to cross-reference exactly who I am. Now, Khan complains, BetMGM have frozen the £1,960 withdrawal. The reasons, regulation and compliance. What has the gambling regulator, Andrew Rhodes, done about this? Nothing, despite the fact that he would act #gambling Twitter, #gambling, #Stuart Andrew, @Stuart Andrew. Shut up, Khan, the Khan man. Shut up. Get back in your hole, squirrel yourself away, and have some personal responsibility. We all know the game that you're playing. If you get caught, don't go crying. You're part of the problem. You are part of the problem. Genuinely. Right? Now, there's a number of people that don't have a problem with the game that you're playing. And I'm actually not siding on either side of the fence here. I'm not saying I'm pro it. I'm not saying I'm anti the multi-accounting. I'm saying I don't do it. But I'm not judging against those that do. What I am saying is shut the fuck up once you get caught and the bookmaker then freezes a withdrawal under regulations and compliance. That's exactly what should have happened. If that doesn't happen, there's no industry left. You know what I mean? That's all that's happened here. And so that is very much muddying the waters for a self-serving purpose from the can man. Can he really? No, he can't. It doesn't help. And then I go and search for stuff from the Gambling Consumers Forum, and all I find is his bleeding name everywhere. And it's like, you can't find the corner when you are playing an underhand game. There has to be openness and transparency about it, which is why I will never retweet or comment on anything that he has with anything validity. And I look to people like Abby and Andrew. Back to what happened. There was an amazing open letter from the Racing Post. Unprecedented. This is the open letter. Now, it's boring just me reading loads of text, so I will try and be a little bit concise and just pick out the important parts. But the Gambling Commission, whose job is to regulate the industry for both punters and bookmakers, took the extraordinary decision to publish an open letter directly to a very small portion of the Venn diagram, but those most likely to be impacted by the consultation and the affordability checks that are going on just now, and send information to them that was biased, at best incorrect, at worst misleading, ill-informed, and also it was an open letter that shut down any ability to comment on it. So it was an open letter without right to reply. What they said was, "Dear Racing Post readers, I write to you about our ongoing consultation about proposed financial risk checks. We understand there are some concerns about the government and the Gambling Commission's proposals. However, as a regulator, we must clear up misunderstandings about these proposed checks." Be really careful here, Gambling Commission. This is not your place. Your place is to stop and listen, okay? And if you're going to clear up misunderstandings, make sure you get them correct. And this is the big issue. Actually, if their misunderstandings had been spot on and 100%, there wouldn't be a problem. But that isn't what's about to happen. First, readers could easily assume, based on the volume and nature of the coverage, that under the proposals, a good proportion of the gambling consumers would have to be handing over payslips or bank statements when they place a bet. This is not true. It's estimated that just 3% of accounts would undergo financial risk assessments, and now we are already in trouble. You see, we're talking about accounts. How many accounts just sit there dormant for the entire year? How many accounts are restricted to £0 and so don't place a bet on them anyway? How many accounts are Johnny from the pub who logs on once a year to place a bet on the Grand National? I would imagine quite a significant number of accounts. I mean, all of my accounts will be in that percentage, and I haven't logged on to them for years because I can't get a penny on in any of them. And yet the Gambling Commission say in this open letter to the Racing Post, this is not true. Our estimate is that at most just 0.3% of account holders would ever have to be asked to be directly provide financial information to operators. I mean, how many times have you done it? How many times have I done it? 0.3%. And they say this means that 99% of customers would not be asked to directly provide any information. It's so ill-informed, and it kind of shows that they, to this point, are not listening in what is meant to be a consultation where they listen to as many parties as possible to the group of people that are going to be most likely affected by this, the Racing Post readers. There are a number of different shops in the industry. There are a number of different players. Let's remove Johnny £5 weekend acca on football. You see, he's never going to receive a restriction or and a request for financial information because the bookmakers love him. They absolutely love the margin that they have on him, and they don't want to put any hurdles in the way to be able to profit from Johnny, the £5 acca man, right? Who else do we have? Well, we have the can he really man, the arbitrage players and the match bettors. I side on the side of the bookmaker a lot of this argument because they've drained a lot of the value that exists. life is made a little bit harder from them, but obviously they're going to receive these financial checks, and they're more likely to because they are simply depositing larger sums. You have value bettors and advantage players. We kind of fall into the same category. And you have Racing Post readers, which are a mixture of winning and losing horse racing bettors, but you place more each way on a horse than you do on a £5 ACCA on the weekend. Racing Post readers are not in the same category as people that the Gambling Commission are categorizing with this 0.3%. And the 0.3% is not real anyway. So, I mean, it's like a double whammy of failed statistical reporting from the Gambling Commission. This open letter was a really bad idea. It had to be 100% accurate and without judgment, argument, or debate on any of the factual information that they were presenting, and it quite simply failed on the very first two things. So the Gamblers Consumer Forum, Abby, posted a really interesting response. First of all, they note that the Gambling Commission does not intend to retract their open letter. They've also clarified their view that on problem gambling percentage numbers, which admittedly must be rather challenging when the regulator themselves have yet to define what gambling harm is. So they've gone on to explain their view on delayed withdrawals. The Gambling Consumer Forum remain concerned that 1% of withdrawals are not being processed without issue, as that would represent a significant raw number. The fundamental issue remains that guidance can be issued, but if there's no supervision or enforcement when this is abused, as it is, then rogue operators will continue to push the boundaries to the detriment of ordinary gamblers. With regard to your email of 20 September concerning my open letter to the Racing Post, I do not recognise your characterisation of my letter or the intention behind it. I can confirm it will not be retracted. That is what they said back to the Gamblers Consumer Forum. It is difficult to reconcile your stated desire for an evidence-based debate with a response to a letter which seeks to inform Racing Post readers about relevant evidence that the Racing Post had failed to share with their readers in line with standard journalistic practice. That's an awful comment from the Gambling Commission. It is not their place to judge on any of that. It really isn't. They go on to talk about withdrawals not being a concern, and official statistics that we report on coming from the problem gambling from the health survey and things like that. And that they won't comment on certain circumstances referred to in the Gambling Consumer Forum's email to them. So this gives me absolutely no confidence in the gambling consumers' impartiality throughout this consultation. What do I think will happen? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm an optimist by nature. The glass is half full. I don't think it's going to be as gung-ho severe as the doomsayers are going to say. I also don't think that the Gambling Commission are going to properly go through this consultation with open ears and open eyes. The best chance that punters, advantage players, and dare I say it, the canny really can mans of this world have is to get behind Abby and Andrew to support them in any way that they can, even if that's through just exposure, getting the word out, retweeting, so on and so forth. Because these are the guys on the front line, and they are critically important to the direction that this is all going to go. The next 12 months or so are going to be supremely interesting. I don't have that much faith in the Gambling Commission, and hopefully at the end of this, they don't exist, or at least if they do exist, they exist in a different form than they do just now, where they have more balanced representatives from all sides of the industry, rather than where they are just now, where they are seemingly just having one ear open to the bookmakers, using problem gambling as a tool to restrict, identify and remove winners, and attacking the Racing post demographic in an extraordinary and unwarranted letter. So good on Abby and Andrew for fighting everybody's corner in this. Okay, whatever it is that you're betting on this weekend, have a look at that Betfred Hotshots coupon. I'm not backing Newcastle tonight as favourites against PSG. I can't do it, not at the price they were. If anything, I'd be backing PSG in that, but I must have got something wrong because I'm not going to claim that I can price up a Champions League match sharper than the millions of pounds available from the shop syndicates. I just don't get it. I certainly will be having a look at Miggy Almiron and Alexander Isak ahead of kickoff tonight. This is Tom signing out.